When most people hear the word sewing, they think they know what that means. They picture clothes, quilts, fashion, alterations, and those are all real parts of sewing. But they're not the whole thing. There's another side of sewing that a lot of people are drawn to, a side that doesn't always fit into the neat little boxes people expect. A side of sewing that's focused on practical, functional things. Things designed to support real life. And that's what this video is about. Sewing online is massive. There are so many directions it could go. But if you've spent any time in sewing spaces, you've probably noticed that a lot of them tend to orbit around a few main lanes. Garments, quilting, or trying to cover a little bit of everything. And all that's valid. But it also shapes what people expect sewing to be. When someone says, "I sew," there tend to be a lot of assumptions attached to that. And if what you enjoy doesn't really live in those spaces, or if you're looking for sewing information that isn't always filtered through clothes or quilts, it can quietly make you wonder, is there actually a place for this? That was something I personally kept running into. Not because those spaces were bad, but because sewing is bigger than any one category. And on top of that, a lot of sewing spaces tend to carry pretty strong ideas about how things are supposed to be done. What's the right fabric? What's the right method? What's professional? What real sewing looks like. Not really from creators, they're typically pretty awesome, often just from the culture around sewing itself. And over time, I realized that I didn't want to build something that tried to be everything. I wanted to build something focused, a speciality, a clear point of view. For me, sewing didn't become meaningful because of a category, it became meaningful because of what it let me do. I learned the same way a lot of people do. YouTube, trial and error, figuring it out as I went. I explored a bit, but what kept pulling me in were those moments where sewing solved something, where there was a need or a frustration, or where what existed almost worked, but not quite. And sewing gave me the freedom to say, what if I just make the version that fits this? So that's where I started spending my time. Coming up with things that didn't need to exist on a store shelf to matter. Things that were personal, custom, and situation specific. Like making a bike basket cover for my mom before a trip. Because rain was in the forecast and trash bags technically work, but they're awkward, they're ugly, and you can't actually use your basket when they're on. So I made something that snapped on and off easily. Something that matched her bike. Something that could actually stay on while she rode. And that kind of thing kept repeating itself. Sewing stopped being about performing a skill or chasing perfection or doing things the right way. It became about problem solving, creativity, and function. About looking at real life and saying, I can make something for this. And that way of approaching sewing is what everything else grew out of. This channel is built around helping you sew practical, stylish accessories that are designed for real life. Things that are designed with real routines in mind, real hobbies, real travel, real adventures. Everything here is organized around that idea. Sewing that's creative but functional, expressive but also useful, enjoyable but also grounded in real needs. At the core of this channel are a few values I keep coming back to again and again. Creativity, functionality, enjoyment, and quality. These values shape what I design, how I teach, and what I choose to build here. And that's why this channel is for women who love creating, value independence, and want to make things that support and enrich their everyday lives. That's the foundation this channel is built on. Because this channel is oriented on practical sewing, there are a few things that define the kind of space this is. This is a channel built around creativity and function. Not creativity as a footnote, but creativity as a core goal. But creativity that's grounded in real life, in real use, in real needs. I care about sewing that's expressive and imaginative, but also flexible, problem-solving, and useful. This space is very intentionally beginner-friendly, but not beginner only. I'm not here to make sewing intimidating, gate-kept, or technical for the sake of it. And I'm also not going to pretend it's something you can meaningfully learn in 30 seconds. But I try to be respectful of your time, so I won't stretch something into an hour if it can be clear in 15 minutes. But I'm also not going to strip something down so much that it stops being helpful. The goal is always to give you the full answer, clearly, thoroughly, and without wasting your time. This channel treats sewing as a hobby, not a hierarchy. I'm not a professional seamstress, I didn't go to fashion school, And this channel is not about chasing that identity. It's about enjoying the skill, building confidence, and making things because you love doing it. As such, there are a few things this channel is not. It's not focused on garment sewing, quilting. This isn't couture, high fashion, home decor, costumes, or trying to cover every possible corner of sewing. This channel has a lane, and it's also made for a certain kind of rhythm. People who are busy, curious, creative. People who love making things, but who also love being outside, traveling, building a life, and having interest beyond the sewing room. Sewing isn't the whole identity here. It's part of a full one. Before we get into ethics, trustworthiness, what really goes on behind the scenes, I want to talk about what content you can expect from week to week. What you'll really find here. Most of the content on this channel lives in a few main lanes. There are practical sewing tutorials, full projects where you're building something from start to finish. There are skill building videos, things that help you get more comfortable, more capable, and more independent with the kinds of projects this channel focuses on. You'll also see time saving and efficiency tips too, because most of us don't have unlimited hours to sew. And when you sit down to make something, I want as much time as possible to go towards actually making the thing. You'll also find videos around tools, supplies, and shopping. What you really need, where to get it, what actually makes the process easier and more enjoyable. Always in the service of making better projects, not just buying things for the sake of it. And you'll see project inspiration and roundups. Videos that are there to spark ideas, open up possibilities, and give you a direction to explore creativity. Everything here fits into that ecosystem. If a topic doesn't really serve those kinds of projects or that way of sewing, you probably won't see it here. And that's intentional. And there's one more piece that matters here. And it's not as fun as projects, but it is important. And that's trust. How I run this channel, how I handle products, and how money fits into all of this. First of all, this is a one-woman operation right now. I design everything myself, I test what I share, and I'm the one making decisions behind what you see here. When it comes to affiliate links, where I earn a small commission if you buy something I link, I only recommend products I actually use and genuinely like. I don't cycle through tools for content. I don't test random things just to have something to link. Most of what you see here are things that I've trusted in my own sewing for a long time. Sometimes during sales, I might point out good deals more broadly, just to note the discount. And if I do, I'll always tell you when something isn't from my personal use. But in general, if I'm recommending something, it's because it lives in my space and it has earned its place there. That same mindset applies to sponsorships. I don't currently have any, but in the future, I may, because this is my job and this channel does need to support itself. But I will never do a sponsorship just to have one. It would only ever be something I use, trust, and recommend. I also create my own products. And when I do, the question is always, would this actually help someone who's here? Those products help fund the free videos, the testing, the development, and the time that goes into everything on this channel. Money doesn't run the show here, but it is part of what makes the work possible. And I want to be upfront about that. And finally, because this is important to me, I never copy other people's designs. Sometimes I'm inspired by things I see. That's part of being creative. But every design I make is thought through, developed, and built from the ground up as my own. A lot of what I create comes from a real need I have, a gap I notice, or a problem I want to solve. And even when inspiration comes from outside, the design process itself always happens here, thoughtfully, intentionally, and independently. That's a standard I don't bend, and it's one of the ways I try to show respect, both to other creators and to you. Another place where questions arise is patterns, why some are free and others are paid. Because patterns are a lot of work, and I don't think people always see that side of it. There's the design itself, measuring, making prototypes, testing, and a lot of trial and error. And then there's turning a finished product into something someone else can actually recreate. Building the digital pattern pieces, writing the steps, creating graphics, filming, and condensing all of that into instructions that are clear and usable. It's a big process. And even with that, most of the patterns on this channel are free. They're free because a lot of the time, honestly, it doesn't feel right to charge. If it's something very simple, if it's quick to make, if it's one basic pattern piece, or if it's a fairly common kind of project. Even though there's still work involved on my end, I usually land on, this should just be available. But then there's products on the other end of the spectrum. My organizer tote bag is a really good example of that. That bag took me a whole month to design and make. another month to work out the instructions, condense the footage, and figure out how to teach it clearly. And then there was a lot of time creating the digital pattern pieces, building the final files, and polishing the final delivery. It was a lot. And it also came straight out of my head. It wasn't inspired by something. I just knew that I wanted to make a tote bag. But I wanted to go beyond the typical version and make something even more practical, with lots of pockets and something that stood up on its own. I just had a very specific idea of what I wanted the bag to do, and I built it from scratch. In situations like that, a paid pattern is what makes sense. Not because I want to charge for everything out of greed, but because that level of development, originality, and time has to be supported somehow. So the way I look at it is pretty simple. If a project is pretty straightforward, quick, or basic, the pattern is probably going to be free. But if it's something that took weeks to develop, has a lot of pieces, and was very intentionally designed from the ground up, that's where paid patterns come in. That's the standard I hold myself to. Okay, so who is this channel really for? Adventurous women who love creativity, who want to make things that actually get used, and who want sewing to support their life. If that sounds like you, you're in the right place. I'm really glad you're here. If you want to support the channel, the simplest way to do that is to like this video and subscribe for more practical sewing content. And check out the shop on the pattern library using the links below. And if you want to go deeper, you can join the weekly newsletter where I share updates, a tip of the week, helpful resources, a personal note, and a little inside look at what's coming next. That'll be linked below as well. As always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye!